Hello everyone, my name's Kitetsu and welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to be checking out the models for the Daughters of Khaine. Now these models hold a fairly special place in my heart. If you have been following my channel for long enough, you will know how excited I got when these were first teased. I actually have a fairly decent sized collection of Daughters of Khaine, and because I have so many Age of Sigmar armies and I have so many piles of plastic, I have to confess I haven't even built them yet. I will do. I'm excited for them still. I love them just about as much as I did when they were, you know, up for pre-order and first launched. But it's interesting to kind of take a look back at them and see how I feel about them now. So I'm going to go through the models. I'm actually surprised there are less of them than I remember there being. 17 results, but I mean, there's 3 versions of the same thing, 2 books, a start collecting set, and 3 bundles of figures. If I remember rightly, I'm not going to sit here and do the maths as well, but these bundles of figures normally cost exactly the same as buying them separately. So I never did really get that, but so 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9. So really there's only about 9 kits here. That's insane. And this one is a dual build kit. These are a dual build kit, and these are a dual build kit. So there really isn't very much to buy. That being said, they have one of the strongest identities as a faction in all of Age of Sigmar. They're insanely cool. I absolutely love their backstory. I really wasn't expecting them to take kind of a subsection of the Dark Elves and make them into an entire faction, but they did it. They surprised us all with that, and yeah, it works really well. I imagine it's because the Witch Elf sculpts and these Cauldron of Bloods, and I believe the Doomfire Warlocks, they were all released quite far into 8th edition, I believe. So they're really up-to-date sculpts. They look great. They were super popular at the time. So yeah, I guess it made sense to kind of do something with them and turn them into a new faction. But right, let's start things off with Marathi. If I had to pick one model from this faction that I would say is the absolute star of the show, I would say it's Marathi. And I would go even further than that. This is actually probably to date the best written character in all of Age of Sigmar. I don't know why, but they've sort of moved away from that fantasy idea of having really fleshed out, interesting characters in Age of Sigmar. Don't get me wrong, there are great characters, there are interesting characters, but they haven't kind of fleshed a lot of them out the way that I would like to see. But Marathi is the exception. She just oozes personality. She's really well written. She basically has the entire faction of the Daughters of Khaine wrapped around her deceitful little finger. She's tricking them all. She is lying through her teeth. She is so self-absorbed and selfish. She cares about nothing really and no one apart from herself and maybe her son. But even then, she is so annoyed that her son has turned into a god and she has not. But yeah, she looks absolutely fantastic. Let me see if I can zoom in on this to get a better view. So the first thing I have to say is they have done some absolute design wizardry on this model. There is something about the overall composition that just looks so stunning and so fantastic. I love the way the body wraps around this pillar. Even the pillar just looks amazing on its own. But the way they have designed her to have all these segments on her body with these super cool runes, and then it looks really kind of snake-like and shiny on the underbelly, but on the back it's almost dragon-like with this scorpion sting-like tail. It just looks absolutely incredible. And I also think it is absolutely brilliant the way they've transitioned the top half of her body into the bottom through this really brilliant clothing and armor design that they've gone for. It just looks absolutely fantastic. It's kind of equally elegant and horrifying. Here we go, let's take a look at this picture here because this is in more detail. But yeah, it just looks absolutely brilliant the way she's kind of wearing a dress that just seamlessly blends all of this model together. It's so cool. She's holding the heart of Khaine because, as we know in the storyline, Khaine has been destroyed and yeah, she's taken possession of his heart. But yeah, these runes, I just love it. It always like draws my eye and intrigues me and just makes her feel a lot more magical and intriguing. The snakes look great. The headdress is brilliant. I think there was some criticism of her face sculpt at the time, but I think that looks great. I've never had any issue with that that at all. That's interesting that they've shown that you can build her with the heart or without. Seeing as it's so important to the storyline, I can't imagine you not wanting to put the heart in her hand. But yeah, the design of that headdress looks so cool, and it really does hark back to her original design from Warhammer Fantasy. But I have one issue with this model, just one, and that is how fragile this spear is. I had a disagreement with someone, I can't remember who it was. They said, but Kitetsu, it's realistic to have thin spears. Do you know what? I don't care. These are models. They are designed to be built, put on the tabletop, used, transported, painted, you name it. This thing is so thin, and in fact I think you get a better impression of just how thin it is from this 3D view. When they zoom in on it, it looks deceptively thick, but actually this is really, really fragile. And the first Marathi model I actually received was damaged on the sprue as it arrived. Now, Games Workshop's customer service team being as amazing as they were, there was no hassle. They immediately sent me a replacement. There was nothing wrong there. But when I eventually do get round to building this model, and I can't wait till I do, I think I'm actually going to cut the spearhead off of the shaft, and I'm going to replace that with maybe a metal rod. I just really don't think it would have actually affected the overall appearance of the model if they'd have made it stronger and thicker. But yeah, this is obviously a dual kit. You get her on foot as well. This, unfortunately, is a model I'm going to criticize. It may be, in fact, the only thing I particularly criticize in this army. And that stems from one thing. I think she has a really awkward and stiff looking pose. There is something about the way her legs are posed and her shoulder on this side just don't look quite right to me. It looks really stiff and really unnatural. I totally get what they were going for. They wanted this really powerful, majestic pose, as if she's standing on a rock above a battlefield, directing her troops into battle, maybe about to cast some horrific spell on them. But to me, the execution didn't really work. Now, I find that a shame because it's almost like every individual component of this model looks fantastic. I particularly love the hair for some reason. That looks amazing. The swirling cloak, the ornate wings, again, the headdress, the weapon, it all looks amazing. The armor, the dress, even the scenery that she's standing on. Just something to me didn't quite translate very well with the pose. I guess it looks alright from this angle, but I'm kind of struggling to find an angle where it looks really good. But don't get me wrong, it's not like terrible. It's certainly not a bad model. I just think with a little bit of work on the pose to make her look a bit more dynamic and a little bit less stiff, I think this could have gone from being like an okay model to being absolutely incredible. But it still just, but it still does encapsulate the vanity and the deceptiveness of Marathi as a model. And in fact, just having two models in the first place makes her so unique amongst this game. It's amazing that when she wants to impress people, she'll appear like this, but then this is what she's truly hiding underneath the surface. Right, so we've looked at Marathi. Let's take a look at the Witch Elves. These are a really great kit, and unlike Marathi on foot, the poses of these models are superb. They look absolutely incredible. I love these models so much. Look how murderous and athletic and dangerous they look. They are truly great kits. They're so dynamic, you can actually like feel the movement and the momentum of these things leaping and dancing into battle. Yeah, they look absolutely great. I really like the armor as well. I like the way they've kind of justified the slightly sexualized look by saying they need the freedom of the movement in battle. Did they necessarily need to be wearing a thong? I'm not really sure, but considering how toned down this is compared to some of the nudity we saw in the past, it's not an issue. It doesn't bother me, and really what they're wearing and the way that they look ties in so strongly with their background and their lore that really I just don't think anyone should have a problem with the appearance of these models. In fact, why am I even bringing it up if it's so not an issue? But one thing I really love about the design of some of these models, apart from the kind of dynamic movement that they all suggest, is these shin pads seem really great because obviously they're abdomens are totally exposed and therefore weak, but if they leap towards you and bring their knees up, these kind of extended shin guard things or kneecaps would totally protect their stomachs. It's a very cool design choice, whoever came up with that. But yeah, really fantastic models. I really like the face sculpts as well. You can definitely tell that they are relatively recent in the line of Age of Sigmar models. Now, if I had one major issue with this box of figures, can you guess it? It's the fact that 10 of them cost £35. They are extremely expensive. I really wish they were cheaper, and I think Games Workshop sort of missed out on a trick with not having them in the start collecting set. But yeah, that is a fairly big barrier to collecting this army. Next, we've got the Sisters of Slaughter. These look absolutely amazing as well. They're very similar to the Witch Elves in a way, but by giving them a slightly different paint scheme, giving them different weapons, these lethal looking whips, and the quite frankly terrifying face masks, they take on an entirely different feeling to the Witch Elves. They look really sadistic, and I guess that's entirely exactly what they're trying to be. But again, the poses just look so fantastic. You really can imagine her just spinning her entire body weight into lashing that whip. The other thing I absolutely love is that with every unit in this army, they always follow the theme of kind of the Witch Elves and the Sisters of Slaughter. And I'll show you what I mean. So for example, if you look at the Khaine Lifetakers, they visually look very similar to the Witch Elves, and so do the Meliusai Bloodstalkers, whereas the Blood Sisters and the Heartrenders, they look very similar to the Sisters of Slaughter. So it's kind of cool that you could have two branches of the army themed around whether they've got these terrifying masks or not. So next we've got the Doomfire Warlocks. I have a box of these. They're pretty cool. I love these kind of unique weapons they've gone for. They've got decent horse sculpts. Is that meant to be some ribs showing there? That would actually fit pretty well with the theme of the men in this faction as well. If you don't know anything about the backstory of Daughters of Khaine, basically the men are treated horrendously. They're underfed, they're tortured, they're humiliated. Now, one thing that's really standing out to me here, and someone's probably going to correct me, but isn't that leg backwards? I am absolutely certain that a leg can't bend that way. Oh, in fact, no, it can. I think they've just made this bottom bit longer than usual. Maybe not. I don't know. Something about it looked a little bit off. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about that. But yeah, I mean, they're a decent kit. They do somewhat stand out a little bit, being males in the faction. And like the rest of the army, they do have kind of unique rules in that they're kind of glass cannony. They can dish out a lot of damage, but they die so quickly. Right, let me take a look at the Lifetakers and the Heartrenders next. I think I'm going to call these my third favourite unit in the army, maybe the second. They look absolutely stunning. Just look at how good the face sculpts are on these particular models. They may be some of the best sculpts that Games Workshop have actually ever made. The armor is a little bit more conservative, but the detail is just absolutely astonishing. They look really incredible. The weapons look brilliant, and again, they've continued this theme of having really dynamic models that look like they're right in the middle of moving. Now, I'm not a massive fan of the way they're attached to their bases, and I think there is one that I saw that was even worse. Yeah, here we go. Look at this one. It's actually attached to the base by the spines on the thin tail. It's like, yeah, we're going to take a really thin tail, we're going to add some even thinner spines on it, and then it's going to attach to the base by that. So I'm not sure how I fancy my chances with storing and transporting these, but just look how amazing the hair looks, the armor, the cloth, the weapons. Yeah, they look absolutely stunning. They're a great kit. So the other version are the Heartrenders. These are the more evil and sinister looking ones with the terrifying masks. Again, they look absolutely fantastic, and they look considerably more scary and sinister. I'm just amazed they actually managed to sculpt models like this with these kind of poses. But again, oh, look at the attachment to that base. It's just so unnecessarily fragile. But yeah, of the two kits, I think the Heartrenders and the Lifetakers, they both look amazing. But if I had to only build one of the two kits, I think I would have to go with the Lifetakers. I think they look really nice. Then we come to the Stalkers. These are my second favourite unit in the army. They're like little baby Marathis. They look so cool. How could you not love these models? So the first thing I absolutely love about this kit, apart from the fact that they are little baby Marathis, is the fact that finally Games Workshop gave some love to an Age of Sigmar faction with bows. Not only that, but they are one of the few archer units in the game, like Stormcast Eternals, that can actually hit and wound on a 3. I believe they've got rend as well. I can't be bothered to check. I'm sure they've got -1 rend, but they're actually really solid archers. But I mean, at the moment, we're obviously talking from a rules perspective, and they look absolutely fantastic. More or less everything I love about the snake-like Marathi form has translated to these. They've got these really cool smooth scales on the belly and the kind of dragon-like scales on the top side with these horrible stings. The armor looks amazing. I absolutely love the fact that, again, like Marathi, they've put some runes or symbols, whatever they're supposed to be, on them. There's nothing particularly fragile. The face sculpts are fantastic. They look really amazing. I've wanted to buy a box of these for years and I still haven't got round to it. How many do you get? You get 5 of them, so it's not too bad, especially because they're quite large and obviously they're quite an elite unit. But yeah, no, they look absolutely fantastic. A really solid unit. These are the other variety, the kind of Sisters of Slaughter variety, if you will. And I think of all of those style models with the kind of masks, I think these are my absolute favorite. They work so well. They've got a real kind of ancient Greece and Athens style theme going on. They definitely look like something you might see in a God of War game or something like that. But the weapons look amazing. The armor looks a little bit more heavy duty. The masks look very intimidating and cool. Look at that amazing paint job as well, where her arm is kind of mutating or damaged or whatever's going on there. That's a pretty nice pose they've gone for on that one as well. But yeah, I would have to say that I would definitely want to include these in my army if I was going to play Daughters of Khaine. If anything, just for how cool they look. But easily my second favourite box of models in the entire range, if I combine these two different forms together. And I do believe that only leaves us with one real thing left to talk about, and that is the 3 different things you can build from this kit here. In fact, that's misleading to say. You can actually build a whole ton of stuff from this kit. So I remember one of these, when you click on it, shows you absolutely everything. It might be this version. No, wait, I'm sure it's this one. Yeah, here we go. Right, so there are 3 different builds. You can either have the Slaughter Queen, and she's kind of standing right on the front edge of this cauldron of blood. That looks pretty nice, but when you look at how delicate the attachment is of her to the cauldron, I'm not really sure about that. If you want to, you can have her separately on foot. So that to me looks really nice. I think I would much rather have her like this than precariously balancing on the front of the cauldron. You can also assemble this, which is the Hag Queen, I believe. And again, you can have her more prominently actually on the cauldron of blood. And you can have the statue of Khaine either on the model, kind of as part of this, or you can have it separately on foot. I think this is one of the best ideas they ever had, to decide that you could take off the statue and actually make it into an avatar of Khaine. What a fantastic idea. And again, I've got one of these models and I'm gonna have to put this on foot just because I love these so much. Such a cool idea, and far cooler than the avatar of Khaine in 40k. But the final build is to have it as a Bloodrack shrine, which has got a, I think it's just called a Bloodrack Medusa on top. And again, this is pretty nice. I think this is one of the only models in the entire Games Workshop line at the moment that still has some form of nudity on it. I could be wrong, but that's definitely something they've been phasing out. Now, the problem I have with this kit is it's actually quite overwhelming in its build options. Do you want to have the Medusa on foot on a base? Are you going to put her coming out of the cauldron? Do you want to have a Slaughter Queen on top, or do you want to have that on foot? Do you want the Hag Queen behind the cauldron of blood, or again, do you want her on foot? I think what I'm going to do when I eventually get around to building this is maybe think very carefully about if I can magnetize her and keep her on a base whilst being able to click her onto this somehow. I'm not really sure how that's going to work, but again, I think this model looks at its absolute best when it has a statue of Khaine on it. but then I would also want to take that on foot, and I'm absolutely certain that that little disc he's standing on is far smaller than the base that he's placed on here. Yeah, you can see it is immediately. But yeah, a very cool kit. I like the idea of having these things kind of wheeling in the background to support the models around them. The statue underneath looks particularly nice. I don't know why, but it always reminds me of, if you've ever been to the Harry Potter studios, it reminds me of the statue they put in the Ministry of Magic. I'm also a particular fan of the blood in the cauldrons. That looks nice. I think my problem is there's just so many options that it's a bit overwhelming, and I kind of like every option, so I'm not really sure what to do. But yeah, a really cool kit to finish things off, and especially for the fact you can build an avatar of Khaine. I mean, the whole faction really is centered around this figure here, or the god that he represents at least, so it's nice to be able to represent him on the tabletop. But yeah, that is my look at the Daughters of Khaine. Obviously, the Start Collecting set has got essentially one of these and one of these in there, so I think it's about £40, £77.50 for £55, so a pretty decent saving. I just wish they had have gone down the route of having some witch elves in there and making it an even better discount somehow, because these things really are not cheap. But anyway, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like the video, don't forget to subscribe. I will be carrying on this video series soon, possibly with Maggotkin of Nurgle or maybe Skaven. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys really soon.